mining colony at the edge of the desert slept under a sky full of dust and stars. The machines were silent, the air heavy with the smell of iron and oil. The miners drank and argued inside their metal barracks. Only one man walked the fence line, his steps quiet, his lamp low. His name was Jalen. He was small compared to the others, his shoulders narrow, his hands calloused but never strong enough for the heavy drills. The miners called him weak, soft, useless. They laughed when he struggled to carry loads. They cursed him when he slowed a job, but Jalen never fought back. He stayed silent, kept working, fixed things others broke. He was not fast, not strong, but his eyes were sharp. He saw details the others missed. He noticed when pressure gauges shifted by a single mark, when the old fence wires hummed wrong, when a shadow on the sand was not from the moon. That night he saw at first a streak of fire cutting across the sky, brighter than anything he had ever seen. It was not a shooting star. It was too slow, too heavy. It burned red and silver, leaving a long scar through the black. Jalen froze, his breath caught, his lamp trembling in his hand. The fireball grew larger, closer, until he could see shapes inside it. Sharp edges, glowing symbols. The ground shook as it passed, wind ripping his coat, sparks raining across the desert. It slammed into the far ridge with a thunder that silenced every voice in the colony. The miners stumbled from their barracks, shouting, pointing, afraid, their laughter gone, their eyes wide with fear. The colony alarms wailed, red lights flashing. The speakers crackled with orders. All units stand ready. Unknown object detected. The men grabbed tools, rifles, anything they could, but none stepped forward. None wanted to face what had fallen. Jalen stood at the fence, his heart hammering, his eyes fixed on the smoke rising beyond the ridge. He whispered to himself, not sure if it was courage or madness. I have to see. And before anyone could stop him, he climbed the fence and ran into the night. The sand burned under his boots where fire had kissed it, the air thick with metal and storm. He reached the ridge and looked down, his breath catching in his throat. A ship lay broken in the valley, black steel glowing red. Strange lights crawling across its hull like living things. Smoke rose in columns, the smell sharp and alien, the air alive with a hum that made his teeth ache, and then he saw them. Shapes moving in the wreck, tall and sharp, armored in bone-like plates, their eyes glowing faint red. Jalen dropped low, his body pressed to the sand, his heart in his throat. The aliens moved with purpose, dragging equipment, speaking in low growls that shook the ground. One of them raised its head, its glowing eyes scanning the ridge. Searching, hungry, Jalen held his breath, his fingers digging into the dirt, the lamp in his hand dark. The alien turned away, but Jalen knew. They were not here by accident, they were not lost. They had come for something. The colony sirens grew louder. Voices carried across the desert, the miners shouting, soldiers readying guns. Jalen looked back. He saw the people who had mocked him now huddled together, waiting for orders, waiting for someone else to act. He turned again to the wreck, his body shaking, his mind screaming to run, to hide, to be small. But something deeper burned in his chest, a heat he did not know he carried. He whispered to himself, if I do nothing, they will all die. The aliens began to move, their weapons glowing, their shadows stretching across the desert floor. Jalen slid down the ridge, his heart racing, his breath short, his body weak but his will sharp. The miners called him useless. But tonight he was the first to move, the first to see, the first to act. The sky trembled above, the wreck burned below, and Jalen, the outcast, the weak one, stepped into the fire, not knowing that before the night ended, his name would be spoken in fear across the stars. The colony guards lined up at the edge of the outpost, rifles clutched in nervous hands, searchlights sweeping the desert. Men cursed under their breath, women held their children close. The whole settlement buzzing with fear but no direction. The commander barked orders, but even his voice shook. Because no one on this world had ever seen ships fall from the sky. They had only mined stone and metal, drilled salt and iron. And now they were asked to stand against something not of earth. And while they argued, while they hesitated, Jalen moved. He crouched low at the bottom of the ridge, his small lamp dark, his heart pounding. The aliens spread out from the broken ship, 3 of them moving fast. Weapons glowing faint like fire trapped in glass. They walked with confidence as if the desert belonged to them. Their armor sharp and pale like carved bone. Jalen's hands shook. He had no rifle, no armor. Only a miner's pack filled with scraps. Wire, flares, and 2 sticks of blasting gel. He pulled one gel stick out, his breath shallow, his eyes on the aliens below. The colony above still argued. No one daring to fire first, the aliens moved closer, their weapons humming louder, red lights flashing across their armor. Jalen pressed the blasting gel into a crack in the ridge, jammed his sparker into the wire. His fingers trembled, sweat on his brow. The sound of his pulse louder than the sirens, he whispered to himself. Do it now, or it's over. The first alien raised its weapon. The barrel glowing with heat, Jalen struck the sparker. Sparks jumped. The wire hissed and the ridge shook. The blasting gel ignited, stone shattered. A rain of rocks crashed down the slope. The explosion lit the night, fire rolling across the sand. Two of the aliens crushed under falling debris, their red eyes fading. The third staggered, wounded. Its armor cracked, its weapon bent. The colony froze at the sound, the explosion echoing, smoke rising. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. No one moved, and then shouts broke. Someone struck them. Someone hit them first. The guards lifted their rifles. Courage born from another's act. Bullets spat fire into the night. The third alien roared, its voice like stone grinding. It charged toward the colony, but Jalen was faster. He pulled his second gel stick, lit the fuse with shaking hands, and hurled it straight at the creature's chest. The blast sent a shockwave through the sand. The alien screamed, its armor split wide. Its body fell in pieces that smoked in the night air. The colony erupted in cheers, rifles fired again. The people shouted Jalen's name without even knowing it was him. But Jalen did not cheer. He did not feel victory. Because beyond the burning wreck, the ground glowed. More ships flickered in the high sky, their lights cold and sharp. Circling, waiting, this was not the end. This was the first strike. Jalen dropped to his knees, his body shaking, his ears ringing from the blasts. He looked at his hands, black with soot, trembling but alive, still alive. And in that moment he knew the truth. The others would remember the explosion. The soldiers would remember the kill. But the aliens, the hunters, they would remember something else. They would remember the human who struck first, above. The stars shifted as more shadows moved in orbit. The night was only beginning. The fire still burned, and the name Jalen, once whispered with scorn inside the colony, would soon be spoken in fear by enemies who thought humans were weak, until one outcast proved them wrong. The desert still glowed from fire and smoke. The broken alien ship crackled as sparks snapped along its ruined frame. The colony soldiers stood in stunned silence at the ridge, their rifles shaking in their hands, their eyes wide from what they had just seen. 3 aliens had fallen, and the people whispered, "We can fight them. We can win." But their voices were thin, their courage borrowed. Jalen, still crouched in the shadows, did not feel victory. His chest burned, his arms shook. His mind replayed the blast over and over. He looked at the wreck again and saw movement. Faint, weak, but alive. Something crawled from the twisted metal. Its armor cracked, its weapon gone, an alien soldier. Taller than any human. Pale skin glowing faint red under shattered plates of bone-like armor. It dragged itself across the sand, leaving dark trails behind. Its breathing rough, a growl mixed with pain. Jalen's heart hammered. He could run back to the colony. He could shout for soldiers, they would finish it. But instead he crept forward, each step slow, his boots sinking into hot sand. The alien stopped crawling, its head lifted. Its red eyes locking on him. It tried to rise, but its leg bent wrong, broken. Its hand reached for a weapon that was not there. Jalen froze, his breath shallow, his fingers gripping the broken tool in his pack. The alien rasped something, a sound low and sharp, its words like stone striking metal. He could not understand. But he knew this, it was not begging. It was warning. He circled slowly, keeping distance, his eyes sharp. The alien clutched its chest, pulling something out, a small shard glowing faint blue, a device alive with light. It pressed the shard to the ground, and for a heartbeat the sand burned with symbols. A map shifting and vast, Jalen stared, his throat dry. He saw not one ship, not 3, but dozens circling above Earth. Waiting. This was not a raid, this was the edge of an invasion. The alien's hand trembled, its glow dimming. Its red eyes softening, it rasped again. And one word came clear, repeated with force. Earth. Jalen's chest tightened. His breath caught, his body weak but his mind clear. The meaning was simple. Earth was the target, Earth was the prize. And this soldier, broken, defeated, had just shown him the truth. If he ran now, if he let the colony take the alien, the warning would be lost. Boots thundered behind him. Colony soldiers sliding down the ridge, their rifles aimed, their commander shouting, "Stand back, Jalen!" Their eyes locked on the alien, their faces hard, fear hiding under steel. "We'll finish it, kill it now." Jalen stepped forward, his arms out, his voice sharp. "No, not yet," the commander growled. "It's an enemy, it doesn't belong here. Step aside." But Jalen shook his head, his small body standing between the alien and the rifles. The men stared, confused, angry, whispering to each other, "He's protecting it. Why?" Jalen's eyes did not leave the alien, his voice steady though his heart raced. "It knows something, it showed me, it's not just here for us. It's here for Earth." The soldiers hesitated. Their commander snarled, "We don't need its words. We need it dead." But the alien's weak hand lifted again, pressing the glowing shard into the sand, the map shining once more, and even the hardest soldiers stared, their fear sharp, their courage cracking as they saw the swarm above Earth. The commander spat, lowering his rifle. "Fine, cage it then. But when command sees this, they'll decide." The soldiers bound the alien with steel cables, dragging it toward the colony, its eyes never leaving Jalen. And in that stare, Jalen felt something heavy, something that told him this was not mercy, not pity, but a bond. He had spared it, and in return it had given him the truth. The invasion had already begun, and Jalen, the weakest man of the colony, was the only one who understood how close the end really was. The alien prisoner sat in chains inside the colony's steel warehouse. Floodlights glared on its pale skin, its armor broken, its red eyes dim but alert. The soldiers circled it like wolves, their rifles raised, their voices low with fear. Children pressed their faces to the windows outside, whispers spreading fast. The monster that fell from the sky was real. It was here. But Jalen stood at the back, silent, his eyes fixed on the glowing shard the alien had carried. The commander barked orders, "Keep it bound, keep it watched. Don't let it speak." But the alien had already spoken, not in words they knew, but in warnings carved in light. The shard pulsed faintly on the floor, its blue glow casting strange symbols across the steel walls. Every time the alien touched it, the images rose again, maps of stars, fleets of ships, circles tightening around Earth. The soldiers tried to shut it down, tried to turn their heads, but the truth was already burned into their eyes. Jalen stepped forward, his voice firm. "Let it speak." The commander spun, glaring, "You don't give orders here, weakling." But the alien's gaze shifted, locking only on Jalen, ignoring the rifles, ignoring the chains. It rasped in its broken voice, low and sharp. "Earth, not safe." Gasps filled the room, even the commander froze. Jalen dropped to one knee beside the shard, his hand steady despite his racing heart. He pointed at the map, then at himself, then at the colony. "Why here?" he asked, his words slow and clear. The alien growled, its voice cracking. "Scouts, test, weak, if weak, all fall." The shard's light flared, showing Earth again, this time marked with burning circles. Jalen's stomach turned cold, the meaning was clear. If the colony broke, the rest of humanity would be next. The soldiers shifted uneasily, their rifles lowering, their eyes darting to one another. The commander shouted, "Lies, tricks. Don't listen." But his voice carried no strength. Jalen's voice cut through, sharp and steady. "You saw the sky, you saw the swarm. Do you think one broken ship was all they had?" The alien leaned forward despite its chains, its red eyes glowing brighter for a moment. "More come," it whispered, "many. More." Silence crushed the warehouse. Even the children outside stopped breathing. The commander tried again. "We can't trust it," but his hands shook. His fear showing, one soldier muttered, "If he's right, if Earth is next. Command has to know." Another spat. "Then why tell us? Why not just kill us all now?" the alien rasped. "Warning. Choice. Fight or fall." Jalen's heart thudded, his breath shallow. He realized this wasn't mercy. This was challenge. The commander finally snapped, "Enough, cage it." "We'll send word to command." But Jalen stepped forward, his voice low but unshakable. "By the time they answer, it will be too late." The alien's eyes met his again, glowing faint, its voice a whisper only he seemed to hear. "You, fight strong." And in that moment, Jalen felt the weight settle fully. The colony might mock him, command might ignore him, but the truth had chosen him. Earth was the target. The war had begun, and somehow the weakest man of the colony had become its only messenger. The warehouse air grew colder as the hours passed. The alien prisoner bound in steel cables, its faint red glow casting strange shadows on the walls. The shard pulsed every so often, showing maps of Earth surrounded by burning circles. Every soldier who saw it turned pale, but no one spoke of it. Jalen stayed near the corner. His eyes sharp, his mind racing. He knew command would come, and when they did, they would decide. But when the colony leaders arrived that night, their voices were low, their eyes darting, their fear sharper than any rifle. The governor stepped forward, his cloak dragging across the dust, his face pale but his words firm. We cannot fight them, not all of them. If they want the alien, we will give it. Better one life than 100, the commander nodded, his jaw tight, his rifle pointed toward the floor. We hand it over, they may leave us alone. The crowd of miners and families murmured, some nodding, some crying, but no one argued. They had seen their homes burn in the first strike. They had lost friends in the chaos. They wanted safety, even if it meant surrender. Jalen stepped forward, his voice cutting through. You think they will stop at one? All eyes turned, the weak one, the outcast, the man they mocked now standing against the leaders. He pointed to the shard still glowing faint on the floor. It showed us Earth, not just this colony. Earth is the prize, and once they have her, they will not leave us standing. The governor's face hardened, his voice sharp. You are no soldier, no leader. You are nothing here, do not speak as though you know. But the alien's red eyes turned to Jalen again, glowing brighter for a breath, and in that gaze every man and woman saw the truth. The alien trusted him, not them. Whispers spread, soldiers shifted, children stared wide-eyed. The commander barked, Enough, take it to the gates when the hunters return. We give it up. The soldiers moved, dragging the bound alien toward the door, its legs scraping, its body broken, but its gaze steady. Still fixed on Jalen, Jalen's chest burned. His hands shook, but his voice rose strong and sharp. If you hand it over, you kill us all, the governor snapped. Stand aside, or you'll join it. Silence fell heavy. The rifles aimed. The people held their breath. And then Jalen stepped forward, placing himself between the alien and the soldiers, his body small, weak but unmoving. His voice shook but did not break. If you give them this prisoner, they will take it as weakness. They will come in greater numbers and they will not stop. The soldiers hesitated, the commander's hand tight on his rifle. The governor's face twisted with anger, but the people, the miners, the families, their whispers grew. What if he's right? What if this is more than us? The alien rasped, weak but clear. Fight, strong. Its words broken but loud enough for all to hear. The crowd gasped, some stepping back, some looking at Jalen with new eyes. The governor spat. You would defy your own kind for a monster. But Jalen stood tall, his voice steady. No, I defy you for Earth. For all of us, the words echoed, sharper than the sirens, heavier than the night. The commander's hand trembled on his rifle, but he did not fire. The governor's face drained of color, his power slipping with every whisper, every glance toward Jalen. And in that moment the choice was made, not by orders, not by rank, but by a single man's defiance. The alien was not handed over, not yet, but Jalen knew the price of his stand. He had made enemies not just above in the sky, but here among his own people. The war had not only come from the stars, it had begun inside the colony, and he had chosen his side. The next night the sky turned red. The hunters returned, not with one broken ship, not with a handful of drones, but with a fleet, their shadows blotting out the stars, their engines screaming like thunder across the desert. The colony sirens wailed, voices shouted, children cried, men and women grabbed weapons that felt too small, too fragile. The governor's voice cracked over the loudspeakers. Hold the gates, defend the walls. But no one believed he had the strength to lead, and as the first beams of fire tore into the ground, people looked not to him, but to Jalen, the outcast who had struck first. Jalen stood near the mining fields, his hands black with dust, his face lined with resolve. He saw the hunters' ships descending. He saw the ground glow with their power. He knew rifles and fences would not hold, but he also knew the land better than any of them, the tunnels under the colony, the charges buried deep for mining blasts, the cracks in the ridges that could break like glass if struck right. He turned to the soldiers, their faces pale. You cannot win with rifles, but you can win with stone, follow me. Some hesitated, some cursed, but when the alien prisoner lifted its head, its broken voice rasping. "Listen, him!" The doubt cracked. They carried the blasting gel, the charges, the wires. They followed Jalen into the tunnels beneath the colony. The air was thick with dust. The walls groaned. But Jalen's hands were steady, his eyes sharp. He placed charges in the old shafts, along the weak ridges, near the walls where the hunters would strike. Every move was desperate, every second stolen, but he knew the desert better than the hunters knew war. Above, the ground shook with explosions, the hunters firing into the colony, drones swarming over the gates. When Jalen climbed back to the surface, fire lit the night, buildings burned, soldiers screamed. The governor shouted orders no one followed. The commander fired blindly into the dark. But Jalen's voice cut through, calm but sharp. "Hold them to the ridge now." The soldiers rallied, dragging what courage they had left, pulling the drones closer. The hunters marched forward, tall and merciless, their weapons glowing, their red eyes fixed on the humans below. Jalen raised his arm, his hand steady despite the storm. He shouted, "Now!" The first blast tore through the ridge, rocks falling in an avalanche of fire, crushing drones and hunters alike. The ground split open where charges had been planted, a roar of stones swallowing machines in clouds of dust. The soldiers stared in shock, then in awe, shouting, "It worked, it worked!" As fire rolled across the flats, Jalen stood firm, his chest burning, his ears ringing, but his voice steady. "Reload, reset, keep them here." The hunters regrouped, their voices growling across the night, their ships firing again. But every time they pushed forward, a ridge collapsed, a tunnel exploded, a mine shaft swallowed their machines. The colony fought not with rifles, but with earth itself, every strike turned back by the land. Jalen had studied his whole life, and the people began to chant his name, not in scorn, not in mockery, but in raw, desperate hope. "Jalen, Jalen." Their voices rose, stronger than the governor's orders, stronger than fear. The alien prisoner, still bound, watched from the shadows. Its red eyes glowing faintly, it rasped one word again and again, human and strong. And Jalen, the weak one, the outcast, the miner no one trusted, stood in the firelight, his face hard, his will unbroken. The night shook with war, the colony trembled on the edge of ruin. But for the first time the hunters did not advance. They stopped, they hesitated, because for the first time they had seen Earth's answer. Not in armies, not in fleets, but in one man who refused to bow. The desert burned with fire, the colony walls cracked, the night alive with screams and thunder. But the hunters did not advance. Their fleet trembled, their drones hesitated, because every strike they made was answered with fire from the ground. The ridges fell, the tunnels collapsed. The earth itself turned against them, and at the center of it all stood Jalen, the man they once called weak. His body shook with exhaustion, his hands blistered, his clothes torn, but his eyes were sharp, his voice steady, his orders clear. He was no longer the miner hiding in the shadows. He was the one the colony followed. The governor had vanished, his authority broken. The commander staggered but kept his rifle raised. Every soldier, every miner, every frightened villager looked to Jalen now. Waiting for his call, he pointed toward the burning ridge. His voice hoarse but strong. "Push them back. Drive them to the flats," and they moved, not as broken people but as a force, their rifles spitting fire, their hands throwing charges, their voices chanting his name, "Jalen, Jalen." It rose like thunder, louder than fear, sharper than despair. Above, the hunters' ships shifted. Their voices growled across comms that bled into human radios. Words twisted, broken, but one sound came clear, repeated again and again. "Jalen." The soldiers froze at the sound, shock filling their faces. The alien spoke his name, not as a whisper of curiosity, but as a mark of fear. Jalen heard it too, his chest tight, his throat dry. The enemy had given him more than victory. They had given him legend, and in that moment he understood. This was no longer about the colony, no longer about proving himself. This was about Earth, the alien prisoner, still bound but watching. Its red eyes glowing faintly, rasped a single word, Leader. Jalen met its gaze, and for the first time he did not feel small. Did not feel weak. He felt the weight of what had begun. The hunters had tested the edge of humanity and had been driven back. They would return stronger, angrier. But they would return knowing one thing. Humans would not break, and the first name they learned, the first name they feared was his as dawn broke. Smoke rising over the flats, the people gathered around him. Children with ash on their cheeks. Men with blood on their hands, women carrying the wounded. All of them alive because he had refused to surrender. The governor tried to speak, but no one listened. The commander lowered his rifle in respect. Jalen's hands trembled as he stood before them, not as a miner, not as an outcast, but as the one who had turned the tide. The people chanted again, louder, fierce, "Jalen," and the sound carried into the burning sky. The war was not over. The fleet still circled above. The danger far from gone, but now humanity had a voice. A name, a symbol of defiance. Jalen lifted his head to the stars, his eyes sharp, his voice low but certain. "We are not weak, we will not fall." And though the hunters would return, though fire would come again, they would carry his name back into the dark. The outcast had become the first hero of the war. The man the aliens would never forget. Jalen.